In this podcast, we chat about the defeat to Sheffield United, the draw to Millwall. We look ahead to the midweek game against Birmingham with Gab Sutton and the FA Cup tie with Chelsea. And of course, we answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is all your Boro Matchday chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And this week, a defeat to Sheffield United and a draw to Millwall saw Boro drop to 8th place in the Championship table, 1 point off the playoff places with 10 games to go. Dana, tell me how you're feeling after the performances this week.
It's a bit of a tricky one, actually, because first and foremost, we've enjoyed an improvement under Chris Wilder. We've watched some great football and lapped up some really good results. But I kind of feel like we're running out of steam a little bit. The fixture schedule and injuries are starting to take its toll on the squad. And I mean, the game against Sheffield United on Tuesday night, we looked mentally and physically tired. And compare that to the game yesterday against Millwall, it was competitive. We were definitely battling very hard. But I think there's been games of late where you can say quite confidently that Boro have looked pretty goosed. And that was the theme of the week, I think. And I'm by no means writing off our top 6 hopes. We're still very much in it. But I do think that this week has probably given us a bit of a reminder that there's still a lot of improvements to be made.
Run out of steam and improvements to be made. Tom, what do you think about the performances this week? How are you feeling about it?
See, I was going to say very frustrated, but what Dana's just said there has changed my mind a bit, because looking back on the result on Tuesday, yeah, I can see us being physically and mentally tired there. Watching it at the time, I just thought it was horrendous. I mean, I think it was Wilder said in his Millwall press conference, he speaks to people around Sheffield, and they said that was the best home performance they've had in quite some time. And, going into it, I said last week, I've not been particularly impressed by them the last couple of times I've seen them on TV. And if we played as well as I knew we could beat them. And then it was just such a letdown on Tuesday. But looking into, the aspects of being physically and mentally tired, I can definitely see it. The fixture schedule is kind of ridiculously cramped at the moment. And hopefully the international break, as much as we all kind of hate taking a week off and watching England batter someone, hopefully that's come at the right time, and then we can kind of recharge and go again, kind of last stretch towards the end of the season after that. So that's kind of like what made of the Sheffield United game. Millwall, I did think was a big improvement. I thought from the off, we looked a lot sharper. I thought Balogun and Connolly in particular looked a lot sharper than they have been. And I thought we were pretty unlucky to win yesterday. I'd have taken a draw going into it, so I'm not really that disappointed in the kind of grand scheme of things. But, it was nice to see an improvement after what we saw on Tuesday against a physically strong Millwall team.
Yeah, and Millwall are in great form as well. So Sheffield United, and its teams are in and around us, and I think it's very easy to be frustrated at, I think, both results, and I think they were both. Well, I think the Millwall's a good point, but then also the Sheffield United, it was a really it's disappointing display. I think it's the first time in a long time that I've seen a Boro team be absolutely battered all over the pitch, and I think it was just I know we've said it in the last few podcasts, so it's like kind of like it's a bit of an off night here and there, but it just felt like everything and everyone was off the base, and that could come down to fatigue. And then when you look at the squad and the depth of it, the injuries that we've got, And sometimes you have a bit, you just don't have that luck there. I think when you look at the injuries in the midfield at the moment, you don't have a right wing back to cover for Isaiah Jones. Of course, I think things do build up, and I think a defeat like that sometimes just happens. And the big picture is that although we may get promoted this season, we may not get promoted this season. But I like what you've said for the last few podcasts and months, and probably for the last year when Wales took over. This is a big project, long term, think big picture, and I feel like Middlesbrough will be in a much better place in the next 18 months under Chris Wilder than they were in the last 18 months. So let's talk about Sheffield United then, because the Boro travelled to Bramall Lane against the promotion rivals. The 4-1 defeat is the heaviest defeat we've had since February 2021, where Brentford came to the Riverside and beat us 4-1. And that was a game which I looked at the highlights of, and it was just as bad as I remembered. But Dana, what went wrong against Sheffield United then, and how were they able to break us down so easily?
I think the easier question would be what went right, because I watched a Boro team on Tuesday night that didn't look like the Boro team that we've been praising quite passionately and deservedly this season. It was just, as you said, a really, really off night, a really bad evening. And I think in terms of Sheffield United setup, they set out to press us with intent and with purpose and with aggression. And they basically tried to nullify our build out from the back and in midfield. And saw that in the second goal. Hauser gets caught napping, and about 5 seconds later they score. But talk about the second goal, when the first goal went in, we were always going to climb a mountain, to be honest, because in 50% of our away games this season, we've conceded the first goal and we're yet to win, having conceded first. So, yeah, I think it's something like 18 away games, 9 defeats, and then I can't even remember what it is, but basically when we concede first away from home, we 9 times out of 10 lose the game. We've only recovered 2 points from a losing position. So it's difficult for Boro when we do concede the first goal. So it was always going to be an uphill battle after that, especially Sheffield United being at home. Chris Wilder's reunion, I guess, with the Bramall Lane faithful. And it was a really, really, really tough evening. Probably epitomised by Joel Lumley getting stuck in the net, and then Lee Peltier's foul throw. It was I don't think I could take a single positive from Tuesday night, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it was a really difficult night, and it was the first time, like I mentioned earlier, Tom, that we've been thoroughly beaten under Chris Wilder, and it's completely different to what we've seen under him as well. Were you concerned with the manner we got beat against Sheffield United?
Yeah, I thought it was really difficult to watch. Personally, I turned it off at 3-0. I didn't want to watch it anymore. So I was just like, no, I'm done. I was checking Twitter just to kind of keep up to date with it. Even when we scored, there wasn't any kind of celebration from me other than get in, Balogun's finally got a goal. And then I watched it. I'm like, it wasn't exactly a well-worked goal, but at least he's got one. Yeah, I think the manner of it was really disappointing. As Dana said, Chris Wilder said the same thing. There was no positives from that game at all. I couldn't, if we were doing the praise and place only off one game this week, there wouldn't be anyone in it for me because, like I say, it was horrendous. I think it goes to show how much work is still needing to be done, and that game's kind of. Although we can get a bit carried away with the run of results we were on, that game's kind of got me thinking, I feel like we're going to be in for not so much a rebuild in the summer, but, we need certain areas addressing in the summer. And then I would fully expect us to go again and be one of the top 2 teams next year. But as for this year, it's kind of like a reality check of where we are, I think, and where kind of the mental strengths of the squad lie, I think.
Just on that stat I mentioned quickly, I'll just say what it was because I did butcher it just then. We conceded the first goal in 50% of our away games this season, 18 away games, 9 times that we've conceded the first goal, and we've only recovered 2 points. So 9 defeats, 2 draws, yet to win from a losing position away from home, which is tricky. And it's weird that is a theme because we've seen the fight back from Boro. We've seen, especially at home, the resilience to come back from a knockback and yet we can't seem to do that away from home, which is a bit disappointing. Obviously, you got the Blackpool game, which is the last away game that we won in the league. We obviously took a bit of a knockback, but we were in a leading position with Sparr's goal. Then we conceded. Then we obviously got that late winner. But yeah, it's a bit strange that, and I don't understand why it's almost we've gone back to the Jekyll and Hyde, haven't we? The Boro at home and then Boro away from home, which is disappointing.
Yeah, it could be like that, like psychological side of things, where when you're away from home, the home team, they're willing to run a little that extra yard to please the fans. They're trying to be a bit more on the front foot, be a bit more aggressive, trying to push our wing backs back and be a bit more, probably take more of a risk than they would probably away from home when they're trying to secure a point. And it's kind of we've got a question on it, and we'll come to it in a second round. Should we potentially change the way that we play football away from home? But there was someone missing, Dana, against Sheffield United, and you can't miss him because he's an absolute dime piece, as you like to call it. But Anthony Dijksteel missed the game and he missed the game on Saturday as well. Appreciate one player doesn't make a team, but it did highlight how important he was to the back three, didn't he?
Yeah, his absence does make a difference, and as soon as the teams came out on Tuesday night, I did look at the lack of Anthony Dijksteel and thought, oof, this is going to be interesting, because our defenders, our back three, should we say, they're defenders by position, but their role is so much more than that. You'll see 2 out of 3 of them in the final third. Dale Fry yesterday was taking the ball into midfield areas. So I guess the players that come in to deputise for the mainstay first 11, should we say, there's a difference in qualities. And Lee Peltier in his own right is a good player. I think 9 times out of 10 he's dependable, although on Tuesday night he did struggle. But you're taking away a player in Dijksteel who's overlapping and underlapping runs, definitely delivers a lot of quality in the final third. He basically drags defenders out of a space that Jones and Crooks can then utilise. How many times have we seen Crooks or Jones in that half space? It's because of Dijksteel's runs and his off the ball movement. And Peltier, let's not forget, has been a fullback for the majority of his career, but he's just not as effective in that role. So that's why I said at the top of the show that it's reminding me of the improvements that we need to make, because we probably need defenders of the same ilk of the likes of McNair and Dijksteel, who I would say is probably them two, along with Jones, are probably the most important players of this team, just because if you take them out, the players that deputise in for them, they're not as effective. So big miss, Dijksteel. Really disappointed he wasn't back yesterday. I know Chris Wilder said he would be, but obviously illness has taken him beyond that game as well. But yeah, he's a big miss, and I think it shows just how important he is to this team.
Yeah, and obviously him being missing, having a bit of an off night, and the way that Sheffield United pressed, and the way that teams are starting to press against us now, Tom, is this kind of the way to beat this Middlesbrough side? Really aggressive on the press, stop the centre backs from pushing up, and then also try to press Howson, because he seems to be the key connector in quite a lot of Boro's attacks.
Yeah, because the second goal on Tuesday, I was shouting at Howson so much to just get rid of the ball, because that goal entirely kind of started from him dwelling on it. But yeah, I think the pressing of the centre backs and Howson, it is proven to be very effective for us, because we're just too slow to get rid of the ball. I think this is going to be something that's improved next year. I think, with any players that we bring in, and with the full pre-season under Wilder, it's probably something that's going to be addressed and would be able to play out a little bit more effectively from the back. But at the moment, it's a bit too slow at times, and unless you got someone like Dijksteel or even McNair, like bringing the ball out from the back and actually trying to dribble it out rather than pass it out. If that press is there and blocking all the options, then really the only option we have is going back to Lumley and hoofing it along, or alternatively he's kind of holding onto the ball a bit too long, looking for another pass, and that's creating its own problems. So yeah, I think we've seen recently that is something that teams are going to do against us more now, and it's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, then. So after the game, Chris Wilder said he was quite shocked at how poor individually the players were. had no complaints, which we've pretty much alluded to anyway. And he said he thought some players were here for the journey, but could be changing his mind on a couple of them. Dan, is there anyone that you think you should potentially look at? But then also we have to be careful with this because it is football. It changes in a week, and also don't take it personally.
Well, when he said that, I was thinking Sprar, because I remember after the Preston game, which was the second game of Chris Wilder's time at the club, we went on Twitter Spaces after it, and Chris Wilder after that game had said that there were players that were playing for themselves in that second half, and we destructed in the space of like 5 minutes. Obviously, we were in front, and then we lost the game, lost the lead, lost 3 points, and I think a few people on that Twitter Spaces were saying, yeah, he was talking about Spar. I think I mentioned Hernandez in that Twitter Spaces. And it just, when he said that after the Sheffield United game, it did make me think back to that. And so it could potentially not be the first time, if I am right in thinking that Chris Wilder might be questioning Spar, that has been a question. But I do think it was him that he was talking about. It's a weird one with Spar because we know he could give a lot more. He's just been very ineffective for the past 6-7 games. You know, his link-up play is very good. And I appreciate what he brings in terms of bringing other people into play, but we haven't really seen that of late. And obviously the miss on Tuesday night was, I think, becoming vintage Spar, really. He's not a finisher. And he's starting to become really ineffective in this team. I'm not really sure what he's offering at the moment. But then you could say that for pretty much all of our strikers, and we'll probably get onto that later. But yeah, this idea of a journey, which is obviously more than an idea. Chris Wilder is obviously trying to implement it. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's easy to forget that Chris Wilder's only had one transfer window with this squad. He's improved things in such a short space of time, and certain players have really bedded into his style and his system that it feels like he's had about 3 or 4 transfer windows, but indeed he hasn't. So it's going to be not a rebuild in the summer, but I certainly think it's going to be more shaped into what Chris Wilder wants, and I'd be surprised if Spar is part of the journey. But then you could say that about certain other players. I mean, where's Grant Hall? There's another one, another player that's disappeared. I think there's other players as well. Peltier, Bamba, potentially Neil Taylor. There's a few players there I think can question marks over their future.
Tom, what do you think? Do you think it's a similar thing with Spar? Is anyone else to add to that?
Yeah, I thought Spar. I mean, I'm not saying this was particularly aimed at them, but I feel like there might have been words about the strikers on Tuesday, because as I said at the start of the show yesterday at Millwall, I was really impressed with the application levels from Connolly and Balogun. I thought they played a lot better than they have done recently, or I suppose you can even kind of say that for most of the games they have had. I don't think it was particularly aimed at them, that comment, but I feel like something must have been said to him, because it was just such an improvement from both of them in particular in comparison to Tuesday. I mean, there were improvements across the whole squad, don't get me wrong, but they were the ones that stood out to me yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, then, well, let's talk about Millwall then, because Chris Wilder made 2 changes to the side that got beat against Sheffield United, and of course, there was changes to the bench because James Leigh-Saliki, Spar was ill, and like Dijksteel was still out ill as well. But Balogun and Taylor came in for Boro and Spar. What were your opinions on the game then, guys? Because it felt like a bit of an arm wrestle, nothing too clear cut going through, a bit of a rough and tumble game. But what were your opinions on it? Dan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I only really caught the second half in this game, but it was quite an entertaining 0-0, to be honest. There wasn't a point where I turned away and yawned, as you would expect from a scoreless game. But it was pretty good. It was full-blooded. It was committed. It was an arm wrestle, as you said. And Chris Wilder said after the Luton game that we're not going to get bullied here. And then we got bullied at Sheffield United, but we weren't going to get bullied at the Den, and we definitely didn't. And a lot of people are saying that it's a good point. For me, it's only a good point if we get 3 points at St Andrews, because then if we don't, it kind of paves into not complete insignificance, but it continues the trend of not winning away from home. But it does stop the rot. We'd conceded 2 goals or more in each of our last 4 away games before Millwall. So it's good that we've obviously put an end to that, because there was a little bit of a theme, wasn't there? We conceded 2 against Bristol City, then conceded 3 against Barnsley, then conceded 4 against Sheffield United. I'm just glad we didn't concede 5 against Millwall. So stops the rot there. But yeah, we still need to sort out our away form. We're averaging 2.11 points per game at home, which is on par with Fulham as the best return in the league. But away from home, it's 1 point per game, which is the lowest in the top half. And yeah, we're behind in terms of points per game. The league average is 1.14 away from home. Win percentage, we're currently on 22% win percentage away from home. The league average is 29. So obviously our away form needs to change, but hopefully that victory, I wish it was a victory. Hopefully that point against Millwall can be a bit of a springboard for more confidence on the road.
Well, it's something we definitely have to improve on if we want to have the playoffs this season. But that home form is really, really good. If you get 2 points, average 2 points a game throughout the season, you're definitely going to be in and around it. We're probably doing that because our home form is being so good. Tom, what's your opinion? Did you feel like you had to yawn on a little bit on that one, or was it a relative good performance?
I mean, I completely agree with what Dennis said. That it was a very entertaining 0-0. I compared it to an ice hockey game at one point because it was very end to end and everyone was just hitting each other. It was great.
That's a great way of saying it.
I'm very amazed that there wasn't a red card in that game because when Jake Cooper got booked 4 minutes into it, I think it was, I think that's when I put in our group chats in there. There's like definitely a red card here, and there just wasn't. But yeah, I mean, especially after the first half, I just thought, right, someone's getting sent off here. But we had our chances to win it. They had some good chances as well. Lumley made a great save in the second half, which kind of really stands out in my memory. Also, Bialkowski, for as much as I've advocated for us signing him, nearly let an own goal in at one point. So yeah, he's definitely off that transfer list now. But yeah, very, like I say, very, very end to end. Could have won it, but as I said, we would have probably taken a point going into it. So yeah. It is good point to get. Kept a clean sheet, then move on to Birmingham and hopefully get the full 3 points there.
Yeah, I don't really want to spend too much time on the Millwall game, to be honest, because I think it was a relatively not frustrating game, but like I was saying, a bit of an arm wrestle. When you look at this side, they've just won 5 in a row. Conceded 2 in the last 6, building like a good foundation, a good form side in the division. So I think it's a real positive that we have took a point away from home, especially at the Den, where it can be quite difficult as well. But then like the lack of clear-cut chances, when appreciate fans, it's a very, very fickle game, football, because if you don't create a chance in one game, that's it. You need to change everything and start all over again. But there's been probably a build-up in the last few games or so where chances haven't been getting put away. We are creating opportunities here and there, but the conversion rate for that has been quite difficult, hasn't it? It hasn't really been looking for like a side that should be in the top 6.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with our strikers at the moment, but I was looking at their stats since the turn of the year. We've had 14 games since the beginning of 2022. We've registered 6 goals between 4 strikers, 7 if you include Josh Coburn, but I didn't include him in the conversation because I don't think he's so much of a problem. But Spurrar, 10 appearances, 8 starts, 2 goals. Watmore, 12 appearances, 3 starts, 2 goals. Balogun, 13 appearances, 6 starts, 1 goal. Connolly, 12 appearances, 9 starts, 1 goal. And we all want a clinical striker, don't we? We faced one on Tuesday night in Billy Sharp. He scored 8 goals since the turn of the year, which is more than our strikers combined. So I feel like it's an ongoing problem with Boro. Of course, we've how many times have we spoken about our strikers can't finish? But to be honest, with a lot of them, personally for me, I see Spurrar as a number 10. Balogun and Connolly, I actually see as wide forwards. So in maybe a 3. They're the 2 wide strikers. It's interesting, isn't it, that we've had so many striker combinations: Balogun, Connolly, Spurrar, Watmore, Spurrar, Connolly. None of them are working, and individually the strikers just aren't delivering. And the chance that Jones laid on a plate for Spurrar on Tuesday night, you expect that to go in, and you don't expect a striker to lean back and blaze it high and wide. Yeah, it's frustrating, and somebody needs to hit a goal trail ASAP because Matt Crooks's goals have dried up of late. 1 in 5 for him. Yeah, we need some goals. We need some efficiency in front of goal. But how many times have we said that over the years? I'm proper tired of us not having a clinical striker. Bring back Brit.
Yeah, Britain Fletcher, bring him back, lads, for a couple of games. He's, to be fair, scoring a lot of goals in Turkey is Britt Assombalonga and
Alongside Balotelli.
Yeah, alongside Balotelli, and Fletcher's moved to the MLS as well, so he'll probably start banging in 30 goals a season. So I mean, if he misses like the chance that he did against Huddersfield, then we probably won't speak about it. But I think with our strikers, it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? I think you're absolutely spot on, Dan, around like the wide forwards of Balogun and Connolly. I think Spurra is very, very good at bringing other players into play, like you were saying. And I think his movement is I think Spurra's movement off the ball is definitely Premier League quality. It's really good. Just the finishing side of things lets him down at times, and that's pretty the reason why he's at Middlesbrough and not at a top 6 club. Pretty sure Sporting Lisbon are a good side, but I mean, when we're looking at the English Premier League, he's just not there. Maybe if you want to try and test things a little bit, like test and try things, maybe a 3-4-3 could potentially work with Boro, have interchanges forwards, or if you want to play with like if they're 3-4-3, you could even do like a false 9 where Sparrow would come in, and then you have 2 narrow forwards and they would bomb on, and just try different things around, like potentially testing that. But then, obviously, of course, you would probably lose someone in midfield in that protection. So I think you'd probably see Howson maybe drop out, and then you'd have probably Tav and Crooksy in there. Or if you want to keep Howson and Crooksy, maybe move Tavs to a wide forward and try things from there. And there's definitely options, Don, for us, but it depends on whether we want to test that right now. I personally think we could. I think it would really take a lot of the weight off Isaiah Jones as well on that right-hand side. There seems to be a lot of weight on his shoulders at the moment of trying to deliver something similarly to what Adama Traore was doing for Boro under Pulis. And I think if we did move to that 3-4-3, just to test maybe, or if against a lesser opponent, I think it could potentially work. You cause the overloads on the wings. You make things difficult. You can bring more players into play if you use Spara. And if you wanted to, towards the end, maybe go back to the 2 and bring Coburn on and just go all out direct and just hit the ball in the channels. But let's go on to questions, because every week we give you the chance to send us a question either via Twitter, our group chat on Telegram, which has over 130 people in there, or you can send us an email at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com. And the first question this week is from Charlie, and he says, I'm going to come to you, Dana, because it's a 2-parter and it's got your name in it. He says, do you think the best way to play against us is the high press, and as we struggle to pass with confidence when it happens? And also, what is Dana's FPL chip strategy for the running?
I'll answer that one first. I don't have a Scooby, to be honest. I've run out of free hits, so I've fumbled the bag there. I think there's a blank game. No, there's a double game making 36, so I'll definitely bench boost there. But yeah, God knows. Captain Salah and Hope, probably. But in terms of the first part of the question about the press, I think it is at the moment. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a vulnerability in the way that we're playing, because as you saw against Sheffield United, as you probably saw against Barnsley as well, we look so slow and off the pace. And when teams are pressing us quite aggressively, when we're trying to build out from the back, it's causing us to think that a little bit quicker. And, the players are only human, aren't they? They're not robots. Of course, the schedule that we've had of late, the non-stop kind of relentlessness of it, you would expect it given that we're in the Championship, but also we have gone to extra time penalties in the case of the Man United game in 2 cup games, and that has taken, I would assume, would have taken a lot out of the team. So the tiredness, the mental and physical tiredness, the players' legs and minds will probably be quite heavy, I would assume anyway. So I think the press is probably a good tactic to use against us. Sheffield United used it well. Barnsley used it well. It's probably one of those where could we potentially rest and rotate players? Well, you look at Howson's position. The only player that you could put in there is McNair. Midfield, we've been rolled over a little bit. Well, not rolled over. I can't think of any other word. I'm just going to say fucked up in midfield because of our options. Piero's out injured. McGree's out injured. Lesaliki pulled up in an under-23s game the other day, but was out ill. Then you've got Boyd Muntz, who's obviously on the bench the other day. We don't have a lot of options available or freely available to us in midfield. So there's a lot of workload on Tab and Crooks, and that will obviously be taking its toll at the moment. So yeah, pressing is definitely a good way to target us, should we say.
Okay. The next question is from Keith and Johnny because they were both asked very similar questions, and it was: are you frustrated that Boro are not putting the ball in the box enough? Slash, for all the sexy flying football at home, do you think we're lacking a bit of Warnock away from home? Tom, do you think Boro should revert back to hitting the ball at the channels and playing a bit more Warnocky away from home?
Right, I don't think anyone's ever lacking a bit of Warnock away from home. Like something I never want to see us go back to now after we've had Wilder for as long as we have had him now. Just kind of really shows the difference. What I am frustrated with at the moment is that we seem to have been found out and that we're just going to utilise Jones to put the ball in the box and that's it. A lot of times now, especially away from home, we're seeing people double up on Jones, and it's just taken a lot more time to even get a low cross in from the right hand side. I think we need to balance that out with the left, but it's not particularly playing to Taylor's strengths. And then on Tuesday against Sheffield United, I think I don't know if this was just because the whole team was terrible, but it didn't seem like Bowler was anywhere near sharp enough to be playing that left hand side, and he's probably who I'd rely on to be getting the ball in the box from that side. So that's something that needs to be addressed. But I don't think we should be hoofing it into the channels or like doing the Warnock tactic of just crossing it in, but in the air and like a foot over everyone's heads. I think we've got the idea right with the low crosses that we're doing now because that's playing to our strikers' strengths. It's just we need to have some sort of variation on the left hand side as well as the right.
Yeah, I think it's just getting Bowler back fit again, isn't it? Because I feel like he could be a really good asset into the sides if he's fit, but his injury record hasn't been particularly great. I agree with you, Tom, as well. Like the balls at the box, like it's so cliche. Like I think when people say like, oh, the more chance if you get the ball in the box all the time, the more like you're gonna score. Like there probably is some fact to that. There probably is some sort of statistic which might benefit that, but this side and the strikers that we have, I think maybe bar Corbin, is just not suited to crossing the box unless you get that low cross maybe and trying to play through teams is definitely the way forward. I just think you've hit a bit of bad form at the moment. It happens throughout the season. Every team goes through it. No one's perfect in this division. Think the bigger picture with the side, and I don't think we should change the way we play now because this is the way that we want to play under Chris Wilder for the long term and the foreseeable. I don't see the point in potentially trying to change short-term tactics for a long-term strategy. I think we just need to keep the way we're going and try to play the way we are. And I think 9 times out of 10 we'll probably get a result. But it's just trying to get these. It's just trying to work out the dilemma with the forwards at the moment. And maybe we could do that with a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1. Try to be a bit more narrow in our delivery, but I think it's just Warnock. I couldn't go back to Warnock ball. I think I've been punished too much for Pulis and Warnock ball over the years. So I can't see it again. But the next question is from Tom, not you, Tom Muldowney, and he says, "Do you feel Wilder will take more of a conservative approach away from home to ensure we keep ticking along to the run-in? But then, do you think we maybe not go to Warnock ball, but maybe just be a bit more conservative in our approach?"
I'm trying to think what that would mean. Potentially 2 6s rather than 2 8s, maybe. But then you think, okay, that the only person that you can really see playing in the number 6 alongside Howson is McNair. Unless you put Crooks there, of course, it's doable, but potentially. But then I'm thinking, okay, what can we do in terms of the forward line? I don't think things need to be massively changed. It's just what you were saying there, Johnny, little tweaks. I don't think we need to bring back Uche Piezu or anything like that. And I certainly don't think that we need to go 7 at the back or anything like that. I'm sure that's not what Tom's meaning there, but still. No, I think obviously it's a conundrum why our strikers can't score and are away form at the moment, but maybe just certain tweaks in terms of maybe a 2-6s or maybe a 3-4-3. We've seen that away from home, but he hasn't started it from the off yet. But little tweaks, nothing major.
Could be something to do with like responsibilities as well. Like in the defensive line, I thought Peltier yesterday, was very dependable in that left hand side position, and McNair moving over to the right. And when you're looking at Peltier, like he's not going to be one of the centre backs who's kind of like overlapping. He will stay back a lot more, and I think Taylor, in comparison to Bowler, he's not going to be pushing up as much. So defensively, they're set up a little bit deeper away from home, just from having those two players in those positions. Maybe that's another change they could make away from home.
Okay then. So the next question then, it's from Dave, and he says, does anyone feel that our match winners and difference makers deserve and require a rest? Dana, do you think we need to rest some of our key assets? Or do we have the ability to?
I don't think. I think even if we were to, or it would be required, I don't think we can, to be honest, because you take out Jones. We spoke about this last week, didn't we? You take out Jones in that team, who deputises? Probably Dyke still, isn't it? And then you just, if our key players deserve or require a rest, it kind of feels like we're just mixing around the team of starters that need a rest, if you know what I mean. So there's nobody really that could deputise for me. So if they do, it's kind of unfortunate that we don't really have the options to do that, really.
Okay, then. And final question of the day. It's from Daniel Johnson. He says, is expecting playoffs reasonable now? Tom, do you want to take this one?
Expecting them, maybe not, just because of the amount of teams that are kind of in and around it, like fighting for those last playoff spots. It'd be a great surprise if well, not even surprise, but a big great feeling if we did. If we've got it like 5th or 6th or something, and we can have a bit of a playoff run to win the season with. But it's not the end of the world if we don't get them. We finish like 7th or 8th. We can rebuild next season. Go again, and next season it's fair that playoffs or automatic would be the expectation. But like I said, with the amount of teams who are going for it at the moment, it's probably not fair to expect them. Just kind of hope for them at the moment.
Okay. Okay, let's move into the present place then. The present place is the place that we give praise to people in the podcast every week. So that could be anyone in the club, a fan, someone dresses up in a dinosaur costume, or anyone in particular.
Just giving mine away there, Johnny.
Sorry. I mean, Dana, who is the person that you want to praise this week?
Yeah, I am going to have to put that guy in there that was in the dinosaur outfit. I saw it during the game and I just thought, are we not going to talk about the guy that is literally dressed as an inflatable dinosaur? And also there's a video where you can see whoever's in it, it's like moving his head forward, so it looks like he's eating the steward's head. I just thought that was brilliant, and definitely man of the match for that game. Credit to Chris for the photo there that we've got on the YouTube video.
Okay, then the dinosaur person is your person, the present place. Tom, who are you going to go for?
I mean, firstly, it's nice to see that Tony Pulis is still following us, but you know what? I think I've kind of only got one, maybe two this week. Connolly, I would say. I've been, like I said on Tuesday, no one really deserved it, but yesterday I thought he was very good. I thought he worked really hard, and he's starting to show a little bit more of kind of what he's all about. I have been impressed with him in most recent games, not Sheffield United, and Peltier yesterday as well. Like I say, stepped in, very dependable, and did kind of pretty much everything you'd want him to do in that centre back position. You do feel comfortable with him playing there, so yeah, I've got to go with those two.
Okay, then I'm going to go with Martin Carter. I think if anyone's listened to the interview that he did with BBC Sport earlier in the week, I thought it was really insightful. And in his role in trying to bring in talent to the club, and the success of that. When you obviously look at the likes of Jed Spence and Isaiah Jones, both coming from London, coming in the area, development through the academy. And I think a lot of credit is needed for Craig Little and his team to try and get these players ready for men's football. And helping us seeing those progress. I think sometimes a lot of the backroom staff and the people that try and get these players in the door, develop them, and trying to build a squad and a team that Boro fans can be proud of. I think it doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think. I think Martin Carter's done a fantastic job of bringing those players in, and I think he just deserves a bit of praise for being able to do that, because I feel like there's going to be a lot more players going to come through in the coming weeks, months, and years, especially with the team that we've got there. So moving on, shall we? Let's move on to Birmingham then, because the games don't stop for Boro, where we play Birmingham City on Tuesday night. The Blues are currently 18th place in the championship table with 41 points from 37 games. To get a Birmingham perspective, we reached out to Gab Sutton, who is absolutely fantastic. His knowledge of the AFL is absolutely superb.
Scary.
It's scarily good. We reached out to Gab to find out a little bit more about Birmingham this season.
I think Blues are one of several teams in the Championship this season that are maybe a little bit lucky that the standard of the relegation dogfight is much lower this season than it has been previous seasons. So there's been times where the 16-17, for example, stands out, where you could have a pretty strong points tally, possibly pushing the 50 mark, and still get relegated. I think Blackburn were, was it 51 they were relegated with? A few years before that, Peterborough, I think, went down with 54. So sometimes you get these seasons where you can be a little bit unlucky going down. I think maybe Blues are one of the teams that are maybe a little bit lucky staying up, because we started really well, and we've had a little bit of a falter sort of over maybe November and December, and then in January we made some big signings, like in midfield, Juninho Bacuna, Lyle Taylor, Ernal Hernandez. These are all players that have lifted us a little bit. Your lot all know Hernandez from his time with your lot. For us, he's just given us that injection of pace, really. And it was something we were missing in our attack. Lyle Taylor wasn't a signing I was necessarily mad on when he first came in, but he's given us a bit of a cutting edge in that final third, maybe more so than what we've had up top previously, especially with Troy Deeney injured. I still think we're looking at quite a big rebuild, and we're putting a lot of faith in the hands of Craig Gardner, who's our technical director, and Lee Bowyer to get things right this summer and to oversee a little bit more progress. I'm hoping for a bit of evolution, I suppose, rather than revolution, because I don't think this needs wholesale changes. I just think we need to try and get the right players in, but there's also an issue with sort of offloading players, because we've got players like Mark Roberts, who's probably going to be on a fair whack, who he's probably our best aerial centre-back, don't get me wrong, and I think he's one who kind of heads balls out of the box, but he does it kind of whilst stumbling a little bit. So I would worry a little bit that if Middlesbrough put the odd cross in, Roberts can head it away, but then your lot are so good, or Chris Wilder's side are so good at sustaining pressure, that would be a little bit of a worry that, you know, one of the Mark Roberts headers will go to someone else, and then they'll lay it to someone outside the box, and Boro will be able to keep that pressure off, keep that pressure up. That would be a little bit of a concern for me about this game. But as I say, there's been some progress recently, and we're sort of just ticking off the points that we need in order to stay in the Championship for next season. I'm hoping that we can get the right players in the summer, because we need to improve the squad, really, if we're to push up towards that top half next season. But we're reasonably happy with Lee Bowyer. We've got a lot of faith in him. Not loads of faith in the ownership regime, if we're honest. Probably a little bit envious in a way of what Middlesbrough have with Steve Gibson. But looking forward to the game, and let's hope we can upset you on Tuesday night. Cheers.
I really hope you don't upset us, Gab. Gab is, like I said before we cut away, Gab is absolutely brilliant, and you can find him at Gab Sutton on Twitter, and he presents the EFL debate. He's a pundit on BBC Squad Goals and League of 72 as well. He does a lot of writing for a number of outlets as well. So yeah, do give Gab a follow. He's absolutely brilliant. But guys, how do you feel about the game then? Because like you were alluding to earlier, Dana, our away form is absolutely horrendous. We're below the average, so that must mean we are going to what?
Win.
Hey.
But yeah, St Andrews is one of those grounds where we've actually had decent fortunes there of late. Obviously, a 4-1 win or something, beating Aitor Karanka there. But it's always a ground that I've never had great confidence going into when we play there. Whenever we play there on a night as well, I always get memories of games that maybe in the Tony Mowbray era where I'm just thinking, oh God, here we go again. But I did have a look at our head-to-head record against Birmingham. Nothing of note really. Not in terms of Oakwell, where it was 2 wins in 9 games there. So this is a big opportunity. As I said in our Millwall thoughts, the Millwall point is only a good point if we get 3 against Birmingham for me. So tough game. O'Neill Hernandez is a Birmingham player, and there was many times this season where I said that he was doing my tits in. So yeah, let's have that O'Neill Hernandez goal then, but let's hope that it's in a Birmingham defeat.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tap in and a shirt off moment, isn't it? Absolutely shithousery from him. But Tom, how are you feeling about it?
It's going to be a difficult game. Just for the fact that it's away from home. If it was at home, I'd fully expect us to win this by about 2 or 3. But with it being away from home, it's a different Boro team, isn't it? I do agree that point at Millwall is only good if we get 3 points here. It's 3 points we have to be getting at this stage of the season. So I am expecting it to be a tough game, but I have faith that we will win it. Just kind of based on the turnaround in the application levels against Millwall, coming straight after that Sheffield United result. I think we can hopefully get a good result here. It'd be typical of us if we drew or lost and then go and beat Chelsea at the weekend. But if we can just get a good result here to kind of wrap up the championship for now before the international break, and then hopefully get a decent game against Chelsea, then I'll be happy, and then we can go again straight after for the last stretch.
Yeah, I always think about when I think about Birmingham away. There's 2 games in particular. There's one where Ayala's goal's disallowed, and then 2 there's one where
disallowed with that goal.
Yeah, it still frustrates me. And then there's another one where 16-year-old Jude Bellingham absolutely had on midfield and springs.
That was honestly a horrible game. He literally sent Britt to Bellingham for him. It was so funny the way that it was weaving in and around our midfield. And then Britt comes into the frame and just flies straight out because he slips when he tries to press him. It is quite funny watching it back. But yeah, that game was horrible. We almost robbed a point from that as well.
Yeah. The good old banter era. You think you leave it, but you never do. So what's your prediction then, guys? Are we thinking a win, a draw, a defeat? Tom, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 1-0. Scrappy game, 1-0 win.
Okay, Dana?
2-1 for me, 2-1 Boro.
I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I think O'Neill Hernandez is going to probably score for Birmingham. But let's look further ahead then to Chelsea. In the FA Cup quarter-final where we play the European and World Champions in Chelsea. And they do play Newcastle today. And they're sitting in 3rd place in the Premier League under Thomas Tuchel. But owner Roman Abramovich has currently had his assets frozen due to the ongoing fiasco in the Ukraine. So with all that uncertainty we did reach out to London Display Podcast, but we've had a couple of problems with it. So we'll break it down instead. We'll look at the top scorers in Lukaku. He's got 11 goals this season. Havertz is playing as a centre forward at the moment. Mason Mount is the top assister with 9. But it's very important when you look at this Chelsea side at the wing backs, when you look at Reece James. And earlier in the season, Ben Chilwell, before his injury, there is so much ability and also much pressure, and the overloads and all of the majority of their play does come from that wing play, especially in Reece James as well, who is a very talented footballer. But guys, how are we feeling about the game? Because appreciate there's going to be a lot on Chelsea like there was in the Spurs game. There's appreciate all of this thing going on with Roman Abramovich wanting to sell his assets being frozen, them not being able to pay for fuel for the team bus. The fans not allowed to be in the stadium unless they've already bought a ticket or a season ticket holder, which has another dynamic. But how are we feeling about the game in general? Just the football itself. One game away from Wembley. We've beat Manchester United. We've beat Spurs. Can we make it a third Premier League team? Dan, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, bring it on. I always go into these games, as I've said many times, just hoping that we could put in a good performance. And I think Reece James might be out for the game because he picked up an injury. I didn't triple captain him. I captained him on FPL in a double game week, and I was gutted. This always happens to me, that the first game of a double game week is good, and then the second game is always bad. He's obviously ruled out through injury, but I'm pretty sure Tuchel said that it can either be a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So let's hope that he's not fit for the game, because obviously he's a fantastic player, a good friend of Marcus Tavernier as well, so that's an interesting footnote. But yeah, I think random that I know that, isn't it? But yeah, Havertz is a very good player, that works really well in between the lines. Obviously, he's keeping Lukaku at the side. I think Lukaku's return to Chelsea hasn't exactly been glistening this season, but I can't help but think of Jorginho on that annoying penalty that he does. And funnily enough, ahead of the Euros games, I was watching a video of a breakdown of his penalty. I hope Joe Lumley's watched this video as well if we ever go to penalties, because the goalkeepers that have saved from that Jorginho type penalty have always waited until the very, very, very last second, because you see, and we saw it with Bruno Fernandes's penalty in the shootout against Man United. Joe Lumley went early. You never ever go early against those penalties. That's what I learned from that video anyway. So yeah, tough game, obviously. Goes without saying, Captain Obvious, but hopefully we can put in a good performance. That's all I ever want from these games, to be honest. It'll be a rocking Riverside atmosphere as well. Should give us a few more tickets if the Chelsea fans aren't able to sell theirs. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, Tom, how are you feeling about it as well? Echoing Dana's thoughts there, being excited about it.
Yeah, it's just going to be a good occasion, isn't it? Good atmosphere. Happy we've sold out again. You know, I mean, other than the football, I've kind of looked at this whole cup journey thinking the amount we must have made off ticket sales of this FA Cup run and what that can do for us next season. You know, imagine now if we get to Wembley and we sell like 45,000 or whatever you get at Wembley as well. That'd be great. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a good occasion. I don't have many very happy memories of watching us play Chelsea at the Riverside. I think I remember going with school once and we won 1-0 because Jeremy scored a free kick. But then, I got my season, nearly knocked my mic out, got a half season ticket, my first one, on was Southgate's first season, and we'd already beat them 2-1 at the start of the season. And that was actually the last time we beat them. I think actually at the Riverside or maybe just in general. But like one of my overriding memories of playing Chelsea at the Riverside was getting hammered 5-0, and I think it was Alex scored from about 35 yards.
That was Belletti, wasn't it? I think it was. Belletti, yeah. I think it was Giuliano Belletti. Yeah, remember that one? That was a great one for me. My first season as a season card holder.
Yeah, so
get smacked 5-0.
It's all went downhill since you became a season ticket holder, dinner, hasn't it? All came downhill.
It has.
So we are overdue a win against Chelsea at the Riverside. So yeah, maybe if we can just do the same as what we did against Spurs, and then we'll knock Liverpool out in the semi-finals.
I feel like we owe them one, to be fair, in the FA Cup. You know, I think with when Ben Roberto gets lobbed, obviously sorry, Ben Roberts, but Ben Roberto Di Matteo, people will get that joke. But obviously that one conceding, you know, we've had the games against them in the past where it's been a really good atmosphere. I mean, I remember the 3-0 win. I think it was Viduka and Hasselbank. I think was scoring against them. I think it was under either Southgate or McLaren. I think we beat him under. When Jose was manager as well. So, yeah, it's a really difficult game. I think the quality that they have in in this Chelsea team is fantastic. You know, they're really building a strong side. I appreciate. I think if Reece James is injured and obviously with Chilwell being out, you know, we do have that. We have that ability to probably press them a little bit higher than we thought we could have. The one thing I do fear about is whoever plays up front and the pace that they have and who is going to be playing at the back for us. Dale Fry does not do well with pace. But if he does play Lukaku, I think it's another person in the big pockets of Dale Fry. And hopefully we can get a result, because how good would it be to get to Wembley? We've had probably the hardest run in history, probably at some everyone who we're playing against, especially with like the team that we are. So yeah, I think it'd be a really, really good night. I might just not go, because every time I feel like just because even though I've got my ticket, I know like I'm just a bad luck curse. So yeah. What predictions? What are we going to go for then? Do you think we're going to see another upset and go to Wembley way again? Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to be optimistic for this one. It's like a free hit for the cup, isn't it? So I'll just go repeat of Spurs 1-0, and it's going to be Josh Coburn coming on for a last minute winner.
1-0. Dan, what are you going to go for?
5-0 Boro.
5-0 Boro. I was going to say
coming off the bench.
Meg Kepper 5 times like they did to Guzan 3 times. Nah, but let's be realistic. Well, to be fair, I say let's be realistic. I'm going to predict.
Let's be realistic. I'm going to go 6-0.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna echo Thomas here. 1-0 Boro.
1-0. I'm gonna go. I think we're gonna go Wembley way. I think we'll win 2-1. I just think we'll win by sheer luck. It'll go off Anthony Dijksteel's bum, and we'll go all the way through. Right, okay, that's pretty much it. But one final question from me, and I'm going to bring these in from the polls that we do on match days. And the question this week, which got one of the most votes, was, what is Dale Fry's signature dish? It was spaghetti bolognese, steak and chips, questionably cooked parmo, and bangers and mash. What do you think is Dale Fry's signature dish? Dana, what do you think?
Well, see, I saw that poll and immediately thought bangers and mash. And I know the parmo, obviously, Boro lad, Boro dish, but bangers and mash for me, I think, is right up Dale Fry Street.
Okay, bangers and mash. Tom, we're going to go for?
I voted for steak and chips yesterday and outraged that it didn't win. So I think it's got to be that. I think it looks like a steak and chips guy.
I think he does look like a steak and chips guy. I think like I had to put questionably cooked in the parmo one, because I felt like that. Surely he can't do a parmo that well, could he? He's definitely getting the takeaway if he's getting one of those. But yeah, I'll go steak and chips. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always, and thank you very much to the listener for listening to us as well. And Boro start to stutter in the Championship, but there's plenty of football to be played. We could be on our way to Wembley way again. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was our Boro Matchday chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.